welcome back, everyone. Today, I have a special guest. I'm interviewing Megan Hillukka, and I actually met her through my business mentor. We're in the same program right now, and there was one day that I responded to, I think, one of her reels on Instagram, and then I was in the Facebook group for this business program and responded to one of her posts, and I was like, wait a second, I think that's the same person. So I took that as a sign that we were meant to connect, and I started asking Megan a few questions about herself. So I'll turn it over to her in a minute, but first, I just want to briefly introduce her to you. She is a bereaved mother with 8 children, one who died at 15 months old. And what she has done is she used her experience with grief, trauma, and anxiety now to help others. And we'll just go ahead and dive in. So, Megan, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, first I want to thank you for having me, Dr. Steph. It's so exciting to be here. And like you said, it was so like, what in the world? How does that happen? It's just crazy how we were connecting over 2 different, completely separate platforms and areas at the same exact time. So that was really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm Megan Hillukka. What was your exact question again? I got distracted.
Just tell me
by
a little bit
saying
about who you
about
are.
myself. Yes. So I, like you said, I have 8 kids. My daughter Aria died when she was 15 months old. We actually just got done traveling the country for 2 years in a converted school bus. And now we just bought a
Whoa.
house and we're settling in. So that's like a huge change, new, different for us. Learning how to stay in one place for longer than a week. So that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. It feels good. And I help people in my practice and my business really heal trauma really quickly and learn how to manage and navigate anxiety and grief and all of the things. So yeah, I'm constant learner, super interested in like mental health, personal growth.
Yes.
Maybe why we're in the same buzzbusiness.
Right. I was like, we have a
right
lot in
place
common.
together, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so I don't know. I am super excited about learning and just super interested in this. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So let's just dive right in. But I guess before I didn't realize that you traveled for 2 years. That is so cool. So um this is an unplanned question, but any like big lessons learned from that, or like something that you wish people knew?
Oh my gosh, like thousands of lessons.
Okay.
One of the biggest lessons though that just popped in my head. We did it actually because our daughter died. It was kind of like we learned that life isn't guaranteed. We learned that, my husband might die tomorrow. I might die tomorrow. Another child might die tomorrow. And so it was very much like, why would we wait until we're 65 where our health isn't guaranteed? What if we're not, it's like, why not live today? Why don't we work towards our dreams today? And live the life we want now, not wait for retirement. That felt like a super, super huge, lesson for us that kind of opened up our eyes to like, I'm not waiting for tomorrow. Obviously, we need a plan for tomorrow in some way, shape, or form. But it was just like, how can we live today? How can we make our dreams possible today or work towards them today? And then with that, one of the biggest lessons in the whole thing of building out the bus, I always say the most challenging things I've ever done is build a business, remain married, and have a loving relationship with my husband, build the bus, and my daughter dying. Those are like my top most challenging, difficult things I've ever done, because building the bus was like, we don't know how to do it. We don't know anything about it. We didn't know how we were going to buy a bus. We didn't know how we were going to make money on the road. We didn't know anything. And the first thing we started was, I was just like, I have this dream. Let's work towards it. And so it was just like having that dream and the vision, like James talks about this a lot, our business coach, having that vision, I felt like that was so true for me that it was like, I had no idea how it was going to work out. People would ask, people would question us, how is this going to work out? How is this going to happen? I'm like, I have no idea. I just believe
Yes.
it's going to happen. And I felt
Intuitively,
it
you knew.
so deeply. And I'm like, then when we're driving down the driveway in the bus, starting our travels, I was just like, what in the world? Like, this happened. This is like
Wow.
our dream that we've been working towards. And it's just like, it's really taught both me and my husband now, where I feel like he was, in that situation, he's so much in like, how is it going to work? How are we going to do it? And now he's
Mhm.
just like, I mean, we don't need to know how. We're just working towards the
Yeah.
dream, and the how is going to figure itself out. Like, we're going
Yes.
to. So that's like one of the most, I would say, there's a million other lessons that we've learned, but that was a huge thing that I wish other people could hear and learn and take away. Like when they think, oh my gosh, how did you do that? I'm like, one step at a
Yeah.
time.
One step
one
at a time.
one little thing that we did, we had no clue how. We just did the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the
Yes.
next thing, and then it just suddenly we were driving down the driveway. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I
Oh
would
my
I would
gosh.
say.
Thank you so much for diving into that and sharing a little bit of that journey. I got
Hmm.
teary-eyed. I don't know. I mean, everybody that was listening would have known, but when you talked about that beautiful gift that Aria
Hmm.
did give to you to be able to really embody, you just never know. And let's
Hmm.
just follow our dreams right now. I think that's so beautiful. And
Hmm.
I love that you talked about your job is not the how. I was just
Hmm.
telling a client that like 2 days ago. Like, she's like, because she was like in catastrophizing mode about, I don't know how this is ever going to work out. And I was just, gently guiding her back. Like, your job is not the how. You got to take action. Yes.
Hmm.
Things are
Hmm.
not necessarily just going to fall in your lap, but you don't have to know how. Just follow that intuition.
Hmm.
And also, a lot of my clients, I don't know if this is true for you too, but a lot of mine, perhaps all of them, are more like type A, so high on control. So they
Hmm.
want to know like A through Z. And I'm like, let's just do A to B first,
Yeah. Hmm.
and then we can take the
Yeah.
next best step after that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Is you just
Yeah.
take the next step, and as long as you're taking a step, if you're not taking steps, nothing, the step C is not going to open up. You take step
Yes.
A to B, then step C. Oh, okay, this is the next thing. So, but you can't see step
Yes.
D when you're at step A. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Hmm.
So tell me what life was like before you started doing inner work, before you started like your personal development journey.
I would almost say it was before and after Arya died. Like I feel like I was not
Hmm.
very interested in in anything. My like I
Yeah.
when I think, I mean, I thought I enjoyed my life, but my husband and I did not have like a as deep of a relationship as we have now. Like we didn't know
Hmm.
how to have hard conversations. We didn't know how to talk about anything, like really honestly anything. And
Hmm.
have like and stay calm and be able to have a
Yeah.
conversation about it without
Hmm.
getting triggered or angry at each other.
Hmm.
I didn't really know I didn't know anything about my thoughts. I didn't know anything about my emotions. I honestly would just,
Hmm.
I was so uncomfortable with any sensations in my body that I would end a relationship instead of having a hard conversation.
Feeling
I
it.
would, yeah,
Yeah.
like I didn't want to go there. So I would just like, it was easier to just ignore it or end a relationship with even a good friend. So I
Yeah.
didn't have to talk about it. And so
Hmm.
that I would say, and then with my husband, I was triggered all the time. I was constantly, he actually, we've talked about this where he said he would come home and he'd be like walking on eggshells. He's like nervous to come home because what's my wife going to be
Hmm.
like today?
Hmm.
How's she going to be today? I don't know. How am I going to respond to her? He felt like he couldn't even stop at the store on his way home because his wife is like, get home right now. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
it's just a night. It's a night and day difference. I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. I mean, it's a good,
Yeah.
learning place of learning, but it, yeah, I was not really interested in any of it, but I feel like Arya dying forced me. it forced me. I had
Mm.
no choice. I didn't know how fragile my mental health was until she
Yeah.
died. And then it was like a
Yeah.
switch flipped and I felt out of control. I felt crazy. I felt so many things. So
Oh.
it, yeah, it's just interesting to think about, what that was like beforehand.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh my gosh. People may not be able to relate to everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure they will be able to relate to parts of your experience. I certainly can. I can
Mm-hmm.
too. The walking on eggshells, like before I started doing the inner work journey, I had multiple people tell me that too. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not great feedback to hear because I also like, I didn't know what to do. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I thought that this is just who I am. Like
Mm-hmm.
and so then I felt like stuck because okay, is there anything I can do to not be that way? And then I'll
Mm-hmm.
pretend and then I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but then I would like pretend and fall into people pleasing and try to, be perfect and then I would lose it. And I would have this cycle of like
Mm-hmm.
control, 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 lose it, control, 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 lose it,
Mm-hmm. I would
trying
say you were more
not to be
aware
like
than
that.
I was.
Oh.
I didn't even know. My husband never even told me actually until after
Oh.
so
Oh.
we would talk about how it was before, and I thought
Yeah.
everything was great, I was like, "Yep." But I didn't realize how bad it was for him, and I didn't realize my like I didn't take any ownership for how I acted.
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
I was just like, well, like you said, this is how I am, but I didn't like feel. I was just like, well, yeah, I'm reactive and I'm loud and I'm like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I am. Deal with me. Kind
Deal with
of.
it.
That was kind of how, maybe like that's how I remember it. Like that's what I think how I thought it was, but I don't know. It's just interesting where now it's way more like, I'll take responsibility for how I'm acting, and I will not take responsibility for my husband's actions. Be like, hey, no, this is like we
Yes.
can have such a grounded conversation about
Yes.
how each of us is showing up and how, how we're feeling without making it mean something or getting super triggered or, it's such a night and day
Mhm.
difference. It really is.
Beautiful. Let's dive into the details now of where you
Mm.
are, what shifts you notice in yourself, and how you view the world, and what got you there.
Do you have anything specifically that you want to ask? Because like it could be so much like I said, I feel like Arya dying kind of changed everything for me in so many
Yeah.
ways. Like, obviously you kind of think, well, that happens to other people. That would never happen to me.
Right.
And I actually don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
Honestly, now where I
Yeah.
am now, I actually don't think it's healthy for us to be like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen to me. It's good for us
I
to think
agree.
it's not going to happen to me,
Yeah.
because when it does happen, then you're dealing with it then, if it
Then
were to
rather
happen.
than twice.
Yeah, you're not dealing with it beforehand. So I don't encourage, like,
Right.
you should think that it's going to happen to you. But
Yeah.
then it did happen to us. And it was just like, it was so shocking. And then,
Mm.
like I said, my mental health, because then I was actually diagnosed with PTSD because I found her after she died. And
Oh, Megan.
I was diagnosed with PTSD
Yeah.
and I thought I was going crazy. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know what PTSD was. I didn't know what trauma was. I didn't know anything. I had,
Yeah.
now when I think about it, like when I realize like panic attacks and
Yes.
anxiety, I remember now I'm like, oh, I had a panic attack when I was like 18 and I was with my husband, who was then my boyfriend. And I just like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what was happening to me. I just felt like I was going to die. But now I
Yes.
know that was a panic attack. I didn't have those words then. And,
Yeah.
but up until, my daughter died, I felt fairly, I would say fairly mentally stable. Like kind of like it wasn't, but like I said, like I was explaining, I wasn't really aware of much,
Right.
but like it felt generally okay. And then when she died, it was like snap your fingers, and I was felt so out of control. My body would react without me doing anything. I would
Yeah.
relive this day over and over again. Like it was a living horror nightmare every single day.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's like, so there's grief, and then there's anxiety and trauma. And
Yeah.
what I learned is that grief is separate than anxiety and trauma. And a lot of times we clump it all together and say, because this happened to me,
Yeah.
now I'm anxious. Now I'm traumatized. Now this is how
Right.
I am. And, I can't change it because this happened.
Right.
And kind of how I like to look at it is like grief is separate. Because you're grieving
Hmm.
doesn't mean you have to be anxious or you have to be living with trauma the rest of your life. Um,
Yes.
so I learned, piles about trauma, about anxiety, about grief. And one thing I'm like, separate them. Grief is something we learn to live with, to carry, to feel. I'll
Hmm.
never, I will always remember my daughter. I'm always like,
Yeah.
have different ways of remembering her and connecting with her. We talk about her as a family. My kids were,
Oh.
she was our third, and I was pregnant with our fourth when she died. So I was due in 4 weeks. So I had a baby 4 weeks after she died.
Oh
And
my gosh,
it's,
Megan.
it was a nightmare. It was not a fun time of my life.
Oh.
But we talk about her. Our kids know
Yeah.
her name.
Yeah.
She's a part of our family.
Yeah.
And so grief is with me forever. But the trauma that, like, let me explain a few things of what it was like when I was living with trauma. Like coming
Yeah.
home from my mom and dad's house, it was a half an hour drive. And
Hmm.
we would stop probably 10, 15 times, 20 times. I don't even know, because I was absolutely convinced my boys died. I would look
Mm.
around and we had to stop, turn on the light so I could check both of them and
Yes.
make sure they're still
Yes.
breathing. And then
Yeah.
we'd drive another 2 minutes. And then I'd be, oh my gosh, you got to stop. You got to stop. And my husband, my poor, amazing, patient husband,
Yeah.
like to have your wife suddenly have this happening where you're like, they're totally fine. And
Right.
she's
But
freaking
you
out
were
and
so
panicking.
scared.
No, I
Yeah.
was like, they are dead. And I would turn around and I'd
Oh.
look, okay, okay. And then I'd breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, they're fine. And then 2 minutes later, same thing. So it was,
Yeah.
that's how bad it was. It was, and
Yeah.
then I had a baby after, and my trigger was sleep. And what do
Of
newborns do?
course.
They sleep all the time.
Yes.
So I didn't
Yeah.
sleep at all. For 3 months, she had
No.
an owlet monitor on, and I still didn't sleep. I didn't trust the owlet monitor. What if she
Mm.
stopped breathing and the owlet monitor didn't go off in time? And,
Didn't pick it
all
up.
this, it was
Yeah.
so awful. And now I share all that because when you're living with that, it's all you
Yeah.
can see. And you're like, it can't ever change. This is too horrible. There's nothing that can help. I have zero trauma, zero, nothing around my kids sleeping. My baby sleeps all night and it's
Mm.
amazing. It's incredible. I love it that he sleeps all night. Like
Yes.
every night my kids sleep all night. It's amazing. I do not go in there and check on them. I am not concerned that they're going to die. I'm not concerned about any of my kids dying. I
Mm.
I don't worry about it. I don't
Yeah.
think about it. It doesn't take up brain space in my head. And
Yes.
I just share that because I want people to know, if they're living with something that feels really big and like
Yes.
there's nothing, like this can't ever change, like it can. Like I'm living
There's
proof.
hope. You're
There's
living proof.
absolutely living proof of it was terrible. And now
Yeah.
like it's not there at all.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being so open and for sharing everything that you went
Hmm.
through. Can you talk to us a little bit about what got you there, from in the midst of experiencing that
Hmm.
PTSD? minute by minute, especially, you know, when you were in the car, when they were
Hmm.
asleep, to where you are now.
Yeah. So I kind of think of it as like with any sort of healing, maybe you like get pieces from here and pieces from here, and then
Hmm.
like, layers, and then, oh, this is something different that, so like each part of my journey I feel really grateful for, and like I feel like it's been a good
Yeah.
thing. Um, but I knew right away that I couldn't do it alone. I knew that
Yeah.
I needed help. I was like, it wasn't even a question. I was like, I can't do
Yeah.
this by myself. And I did go to therapy, and that's where I learned about trauma, where my therapist told me about trauma. And she had recommended me to someone to do EMDR. So I did EMDR,
Yeah.
and I spent about a year going to therapy twice a week, um, doing EMDR. And I told people, this is my life. It's like a full-time job. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to therapy. I'm healing. It is exhausting. It's draining, but it's what I need to do. And
Hmm.
so, um, I EMDR was amazing. It completely changed
Yeah.
my experience with trauma, and I'm
Yeah.
so 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 grateful for that. And then as I've learned more, and as I've dove into this world of anxiety and trauma and grief, and really learned so much more about like whatever, um I came across something called rapid resolution therapy that I had mentioned to
Hmm.
you before when we were
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
And I had heard somebody say, talk about it, and I was like, how is that possible? I don't believe
Yeah.
it. Like, as
That
if
was my
that's
first
true.
reaction
Yeah, like that
last year.
seems
Yeah.
like a fluke, or seems like that's not possible. Like, I spent a full year doing deep, intense, painful work to heal
Yeah.
my trauma. And up until that
Yeah.
point, I thought that's how you have to do it. I
Yeah.
just thought that's how it is. To heal trauma, it has to be painful, has to be a lot of work. You have to relive
Hmm.
the memories. You have to feel it super deeply, relive it, all the stuff. And
Hmm.
what I've learned now, and I had mentioned to you that I just can't recommend EMDR, even though it's an amazing tool. And if somebody wants to use it, it certainly can be effective. It's
Right.
just not the fastest, easiest, most effective way that I found
To get
now.
results. Yeah.
Yeah, like in with RRT, what I've learned is trauma can be healed in as little as 1 or 2 sessions. And
Mm.
not only have I seen this over and over and over, I facilitated many sessions where this has happened.
Yes.
And
Yes.
a few clients have been like, this has been a lifelong trauma that I've been to years of
Hmm.
therapy, and it's gone
Yeah.
right now. And
Yes.
like those kind of experiences. And another experience where I had a mom who was reliving the day her child died over and over and over. And I was like, we're not
Mm.
talking about that. We're going to go talk about other things, like when we're clearing the trauma. We
Yeah.
didn't even talk about that. We didn't even go
Yeah.
through it, didn't relive nothing.
Yeah.
And then I asked her a couple weeks later, and so how was that? Like, how's that been? Are you, you know, have those things been still happening? She's like, oh, no, no, it's not. And
Isn't the mind incredible?
I'm like, seriously, the biggest
Yeah.
struggle I have with this RRT
Yeah.
is people don't realize how powerful it is because it was so easy. Because,
Yes.
they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot that that's not showing up. I'm like, do you know that I spent 1 full year going twice a week?
Yes.
It was my full-time
Yes.
job to heal that.
Yeah.
And you healed it in one
Yes.
session. So like, I have to like point that
Yes.
out to people because they don't know like how much work it could be. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest struggle I have.
Yeah. That makes
But
sense.
yeah,
Oh,
so
thank you so much for sharing more about that. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I heard about it for the first time last year and I was like, what is this?
mhm.
And it's awesome to get your firsthand experience. And now that you've seen like hundreds or more than 100, I can't remember the number you
Yeah.
said, go through
Yeah.
this process and get incredible results. That is
Mm-hmm.
amazing to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. And then I think just through this whole experience of learning, like there's so much combination of learning how to be aware of yourself and your thoughts and your
Mm.
emotions and your body, but also that there's things that you can do to just like clear it. So like the trauma's gone. So you don't have to regulate yourself after a trigger. Like you don't have to,
Yeah.
like when the trauma triggers, what if the trauma just didn't trigger at all?
Right.
What if
Yes.
there was no
Yes.
trigger? So
Yes.
that's kind of where RRT gets you to, and where like I feel like now in my life, I just I don't know, when I think about everything that I've been through, and I'm just like, I
Yeah.
feel so grateful for my life, for where we're
Mm.
at. I feel so grateful that both me and my husband are like, we're on the same page and we're excited about our future. Like when your child dies, it
Yes.
can be really challenging to be excited. Like, what's the point of my future?
Of
Why
course.
would I even keep living? And we're like both like, how can life get even better than this? Like it just
Yeah.
feels like our life is so amazing. But again, I share that because I want people to know what's possible for them.
There's hope.
Like
Yeah.
there's so much hope and so much, like
Yes.
it can be so different. And actually, my husband and I were just talking last night, and what did he say? He said something about, he said it could be partly my personality, but that I've done so much work on myself mentally, emotionally, like
Yeah.
it feels kind of good to be acknowledged, like to be like, hey,
Yes.
yeah, you see all the effort I put in to our relationship, to us, to me, to have that
Yes.
connection together, because I don't think that connection just happens. It's been a lot of
Hmm.
like learning and continuous, like even now we're still always learning how to get connected again. Um, because it's just the way of life and as humans.
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels so good to be seen in that way. And
Hmm.
you objectively went through one of the worst things a mother could ever experience, or maybe the worst thing that a mother could
Hmm.
ever experience. And the fact that you're able to find gratitude for it, I think is so beautiful. She did give you a gift for yourself, but then now you're helping so many women. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'll receive that. But I think it's interesting because like obviously I would wish that I would have learned it a different way. I'm
Of
like,
course.
couldn't have I just like learned this just because?
Yeah.
Like just, through life. But I am so grateful for, obviously I wouldn't wish this kind of experience on anybody, but
No.
I feel like the gifts it has given me, like I can choose to take the gifts if I want, and I don't have to take them if I don't want. But I
Yeah.
might as well take the gifts that I'm given from this
Mm.
experience.
Hmm.
Um, and it doesn't mean anything about me being happy that she died. It just means that I'm
No,
taking
absolutely
these
not.
gifts. I only
Yeah.
say that because a lot of times people will say, well, like there's nothing good that could come out of my child dying, or I'm not going to
Yeah.
look for any gifts. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
for
You
me,
can,
it's like, well,
yeah.
I can take the gifts and it doesn't make it okay to me. Like it doesn't mean like that was good that she died.
Yeah. Of
I can
course.
I can be okay, and I can still not be like, oh, I'm so happy that happened.
Yeah.
And
It's like both experiences are coexisting, and they
yeah,
always can, and they always do.
mhm,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and it feels better for me to take the gifts and to learn and to obviously find ways to connect with her and remember her and bring her forward with us in our life. Um,
Yeah.
but I've learned a lot. Grief is a painful teacher, and then when you have mental struggles, things that feel out of control,
Yeah.
it feels like it has given me a depth of understanding and compassion for others who are experiencing that kind of
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
before I experienced this, I probably would have been like, just relax, or, like, what are you doing? I don't,
Mhm.
I didn't get it. Like when you haven't
Yeah.
experienced trauma, it's very difficult to understand that they're not trying to relive a memory, or they're not trying
Right.
to, have a panic attack. It's just like happening to them. And
Yeah.
so it gives me that compassion and understanding, having been through it
Yeah.
myself.
I really
Yeah.
like that you said that. That's something that I try to do personally is when I'm going through something that feels really hard. And maybe my initial reaction is like, I wish this wasn't happening, or why did this happen? Or why did I not figure this out earlier? The
Yeah.
typical
Yep.
thought process that is easy
Yep.
to dive down. Then I bring myself back to all of the times in my life when I have been through very challenging situations. And there was good
Hmm.
because at a minimum, I was able to empathize with people so much better because I got
Yeah.
it at a like deep core raw level.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you didn't use this word, and perhaps you didn't feel this way, but one of the last things that I like to ask is if someone listening has moments, or maybe more than moments, where she feels broken,
Hmm.
and maybe she's asking herself, "Why am I like this?" What advice do you have, or do you want to leave her with?
A million different directions I could go, but
Yeah, yeah,
obviously the first one is you're not broken. I think a lot of us
yeah.
feel that way, and I would say I did feel that way. That was, I felt
Hmm.
so broken and like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why is this happening? All
Yeah.
those things. Um,
Yes.
you're not broken, and sometimes, especially like I know we're talking a lot about like mental stuff, like mental
Hmm.
health, all that stuff.
Hmm.
It's easy to see that your arm is broken and be like, oh, okay, I can go deal with that. But with mental
Yes.
stuff, it's not so clear. And I don't consider anybody broken ever. I don't think
Mhm,
of people as
mhm.
broken. I don't think of people as, um, I don't really necessarily always agree with like labeling people as disordered, or
Yeah.
like all this brokenness. How I like to think about it and to tell people is you're not broken, and to encourage you to seek the things that could assist you. But when you're dealing with it mentally, it can feel like, this should just be easier for me. Why is this so hard for
Mhm,
me? What,
mhm.
and you can't tell that, it could be easier, but not because there's something wrong with you, but because maybe
Right.
you haven't gotten the right tools yet, or the right
Tools.
assistance, or the right,
Yes.
like with RRT, clearing different, like blocks that have been within the subconscious mind, those kind of things. It's not
Yes.
you. It's not
Yeah.
you're broken. It's that there's something maybe that's getting in the way of how you want to be optimally. And
Yes.
and it's not, and I think we wait too long often when we're
Mhm,
experiencing something, say mentally, physically, whatever, emotionally, and we're
mhm.
like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just a time right now that I'm going through. Or maybe, like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me? I don't know. Like, is this bad enough? Does this, do I
Mhm.
have to be
That's so
like in
true.
bed all day long every day in order to do something about it? Do I have to not be able to function? Do I have to, like, at what level
Yeah.
is it okay
Right.
for me to do something about this? And it's like, at
Whenever
the
you want to.
certain point, whenever you want to, and whenever it's like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of
This
living like this. I'm kind of
Yes.
tired
Yes.
of snapping at my kids every day. I'm kind of tired
Yeah.
of the disconnection with my husband. I'm kind of tired with whatever it is.
Mhm.
This trigger. I'm tired of being
Preach.
triggered by this word, you know?
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't have to be
Exactly.
your non-functioning in bed. It can be before
Yeah.
that. And actually, I would
So
encourage you to be before that.
Yes,
So
absolutely. So
kind of a
many
long
women
rant.
in Yeah. Oh, I get it though. So many
Yeah.
women in this community, they want to do it themselves and figure it
Mm-hmm.
out themselves also because it does feel vulnerable for a lot of people to ask for help. And
Yes.
it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself to heal and to break cycles and to
Mm-hmm.
recover and to really step into who you actually are.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
100% agree.
yes. Okay. Anything else you want to share?
Um, I guess I hope people heard hope, and I hope people heard
Yes.
like, um, now is the time to do something wherever you
Yes.
feel called to do that thing, because
Mm.
your life is just passing you by. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're deciding to do something about it or not, time is going to keep passing. And like I learned with my daughter's death, why not try to reach towards the most beautiful possible life today, rather than thinking,
Yes.
when my kids grow up, or right now I don't have time, or right now I'm so busy. It's like, well, when would you not be busy? Wouldn't your
Right.
kids prefer a calm, present, relaxed mom now
Mm-hmm.
rather
Yes.
than when they're gone? Like,
Love
wouldn't your
this.
husband prefer a connected, loving spouse now? It's just like,
Yes.
and sometimes we have to, it's as sad as it is, as moms and wives, we have to think about our kids and husbands sometimes before we'll actually do something for ourselves. It's like,
You're right.
it's
It's
like,
very common.
think
Yep.
about how it's affecting them, because
Yeah.
then maybe you'll take care of yourself and do something about it. And I'll just say, just like, the
Yes.
time is now. Don't wait.
Don't wait. I love that. I'm
Hmm.
like, preach, girl.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, how can listeners best connect with you?
Yes. So I have a website. It's meganhillukka.com. I have a podcast. It's currently called Groovy Moms Podcast, but I'm trying to change the name. So you'll find it, Groovy Moms Podcast. I'm trying to make it a more general motherhood podcast. So it's
Yes.
kind of en route,
Yes.
in
Okay.
between
Okay.
stages. But Groovy Moms Podcast is my podcast. My Instagram is Megan_Hillukka. And
Okay.
yeah, those are the easiest ways to find me.
Perfect. I'll link everything in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to connect with Megan, just scroll down and you've got it. Thank you so much for coming on today.